Hi, Pete here. A few of you have asked me how I built my urban garden, the window farm hanging up there, so I thought I'd make a quick video just to show you how I put it together. So this is what we're looking to create, just a series of bottles hanging upside down, touched together, being drip fed from the top. So the first thing you've got to decide is what bottles you use a lot and what pots are going to fit in them. This is a 3-inch or 8cm net pot that I purchased, but it's very similar to a lot of herb pots you might get in the shops. Or I've also used yogurt pots and just cut a bunch of holes in the bottom and holes in the side. These are what we get our milk in, so we go through quite a lot of these, and I know that this fits inside of there. If you line them up, you can see it's a pretty good fit in there. So if you have something at least this size, this is 1 litre. Some people do it with 1.5 litres or 2 litres, and then basically the idea is to cut a hole in here big enough that you can slot that in, and it should sit somewhere in there once it's hanging vertically. So for my first design, I basically just created a bunch of these, a large window at the front, so bigger than the net pot, can squeeze in, and basically it just sits in there like that, and that's it. Back window, but since it's hanging that way, it's nice that you can see the plant, see that it's healthy, and see that it's getting the drips from above, and I'm going to hang it through where I've marked these holes. So for the cutting, use the bottle to mark out. I thought sitting there looked pretty good, enough for the roots to hang down in the neck here. So I went above this rib and just marked across most of the bottle from either side, turned it on its side and put a vertical mark there, vertical mark on the other side, and mark the top under here, and then just connected them like that. Now I've seen people trace over their pots and other stuff like that. I prefer just to do it freehand, but if you want to do it more accurately, find something circular bigger than your pot, stick it over the front, trace around it, and then cut it out. Basically you end up with that. Again, for the back one, I just penciled in something similar, making sure there's at least 1 inch or 3 centimeters on the side for strength, because it's all going to be hung from there, and then just cut it out the same. Either find a sharp knife, especially for the initial puncture, something small, some scissors, nail scissors, or these clippers actually work quite well. So that's your first one, that'll be the top one you'll hang it from. Once that's done, put it aside. You'll need 1 of these for each tower you want to build, so I've got 2 towers, so I've got 2 of these. Put it aside and we'll build the next ones. So each subsequent bottle you want will look more like this, and I'll take you through how to do that one. So for this one, it's very similar. These bottles actually have a nice line on either side, which is good to use as a guide. Again, at the same point as in this one, put your line there, put it almost all the way across, somewhere like those 2 marks there. As you see, you want to have 2 holes on the back, so I use the other line. So if we put the holes here, so then we can cut either side of that. Put it on its side, mark a line halfway through, which is about there. The same on this side, halfway from there to there, and halfway vertically, it's about there. So that's all I do. I just cut it freehand, join the dots like that, and then cut it out. I find the easiest way to cut it out is just to cut off the top, complete, and then go around the edge. Start in a space that you're going to cut away. So all this is going here, so I'm just going to go in here. Pretty easy, cut off the top. done. Then I'm going to trace through here. Sometimes the scissors are better once you get into it. There you go. Basically, you end up with that. Then do the same on the back. Same line as this. Put a mark on the back. Create it a few inches wide, a few inches tall, and basically you're just looking for a bit of an arc. Make sure you've left enough on either side for it to be strong enough to hang from. Once you got started, prefer the scissors. Any punch would use as long as you can fit your zip ties through it, or if you don't have zip ties you could use string or wire. Probably a A4 binder hole punch would work as well, or a drill. Anything you can basically punch a hole with. Just make sure that your holes are the same distance from here, that way it'll hang straight. So if you have some kind of ribs or guides on your bottle, free to use those. Punch that one out, give it a squeeze, punch that one out, done. And there you have your basic structure. So you need to put one of those for each subsequent plant you want to put in. So we've got our top one, which for me is one plant, and we've got another. And then for this tower I'm just going to build 3 plants basically, so I'll build a third. And all we're going to do is mount that one on there with the zip tie and mount that one on there. Before I put them all together, I should point out that you probably saw earlier there was silver foil over some of my bottles. If you're doing it hydroponically, you need to make sure that that section of each bottle is not transparent, so the light doesn't get through it. So some people, if they're using clear bottles, they spray their bottles white or whatever color. I didn't want to mess around with spray, so I just wrapped them in foil. Now I've subsequently learned that these actually have a layer of black to block out the light in the middle. You maybe just see it there. So I'm going to try without it this time. It just basically helps the roots know that they're underground if you're doing it hydroponically. If you're doing it in soil, this should be fine. One thing though you should do is probably cover the bottom reservoir so algae doesn't grow. Next thing we have to do before we put it all together is decide how we're going to hang it. The way I'm just going to hang it, I'm going to put a wooden skewer through the top here, out the other side, and hang it from my curtain rail with a bit of fishing twine and a kitchen IKEA hook. So to do that, I'm just going to drill a quick hole here, and I'm going to drill a quick hole here. As the holes before, make sure that they're level, otherwise your bottle won't hang straight. So as you can see, those X's, they're not quite parallel, so I'll probably drill this one a bit lower. And to do that, I'm just going to use a drill. It's a bit tricky drilling into this plastic. The hole punch might work just as well actually, but let's have a go. Okay, eventually got through. So it's just a matter of a bit of patience. Okay, you see this last X? That's where the drip tube is going to come in. So this is the tubing I've been using for the drip, the water. The inner diameter is 4 mm and the outer diameter is 6 mm, and it's the same diameter as most of the fish tank pumps you can get at most stores or online. So I'm just going to drill a hole with a diameter the same size as the tube, and it's going to come in the top here. I'm just going to drill this. It's a bit tricky, so take your time getting in here. Depending on where your tube is going to come in, you might want to put it on top, but I know this one's going to come kind of come in from the side, so that'll just slot in there, and then we'll put this through both holes there, and there you have it. So that's how it's basically look. I'll probably chop off the ends once I'm done because it's quite long. That's your top bottle. So if you are spraying your bottles or wrapping them in foil, you should definitely do that before you put them together. Put them together is pretty simple. You just lay them together and you just zip tie them. I find it's easier if you put the tab at the front. That way you can tuck in the remaining piece. So if you just thread these through there, that through there, tuck in your bottle and pull it tight. That's it. And then just tuck your excess through there and it hides it away, or chop it off. Before you crank it up, just align them first and then give it another pinch tight, and then repeat for the following bottle. That's it. The reservoir bottle on the bottom, which is my last bottle here, everyone's last bottle, but I'm only doing 3 plants on this one. That's a bit different, and I'll show you that next. So the reservoir bottle you want to leave pretty much intact. The only thing you need is a slot to put in your bottle tower, your 2 holes for the zip ties, and then I created this flap just so it's easy to top it up. So when it's hanging, that'll sit in there, and you've just got a little flap, you can top it up, and then you can close it afterwards a little bit. So to do that, I just put the top on here and trace around it, and then cut it out, and then created this whale tail shape out of here, which you can pull back to top it up. So that's pretty simple. Just be careful. The center of the bottles are pretty thick, so try not to cut through there. As you see, I've just gone around it and then cut out this shape too. You can see in these 2 bottles I've put a little kind of float indicator, and that kind of tells you how much water you've got left in the supply. Works a bit like this. When it's low, it drops down there, so you can see how much is left. So just in the top, it'll hang down diagonally because these bottles don't hang straight. Again, just be careful of your fingers. It's kind of hard to drill into this now that it's a bit cut and not so stable. As you see, that took a while. I probably could have used the hole punch because it's easily accessible, but a bit of patience, you'll get through. So for the rest of it, you just need a piece of straw just to guide the skewer through, something like that. And that's just going to sit in here like that. You then need a skewer, same as before, and as I said, I've got a piece of cork. I find the plastic wine bottles work best, but just happen to have this one lying around. So just cut a section off there like that, and then you put this in the center and you put it in here. It's actually easier to put this in here first and then put this on like that. Put it in nice and fast so it won't fall off, and then that's your float switch. Now that's optional. Obviously, you know, you can tell when it's empty shaking it. If you've got the clear plastic bottle, that's probably even easier. Now if you're going to make your tower for soil, you probably want to not zip tie on your reservoir yet, because you might want to flush the whole system through a couple of times before you attach this. That way any loose soil you can flush out before you attach the reservoir and finally do the bottom tube. Attaching the reservoir bottle is a little trickier, just because it's harder to get access in here. I found the best way to do that is just to create the loop first in your bottle like this, just till the first click there. Then you see you can feed this through there and up at the back. So it's around the neck of the next bottle. And there basically you have the whole thing. Next thing to talk about is the bottle tops. You could leave them off and just let it drip through. You could cut a hole, guide it in here. I've seen people cut out a V shape and then bend it over. I find the best thing is to create a little tip like this. It just easily allows the water to drain through, and you can twist it and kind of aim where your drip's going so it's not dripping on top of leaves or flowers or whatever you have. So I kind of create those. Also, it's the best way I found to attach the tube on the bottom. So to make these, basically what you do is you take a lighter and you heat up the flat surface, and then you push something through the bottom, a chopstick or a drill bit or something that's about that size. Obviously you have to be careful of your fingers and stuff, so it might not be for everyone. I'll quickly show you how you do it. So you basically just heat up the cap so it melts. So this is just a kitchen gas lighter, candle lighter. If you have a normal lighter or whatever you have, you can just heat it up like this. The other way, if you're using bottles and you can find like the sports caps to fit, that would probably just work, just to screw on if they're the same size. Obviously these are much bigger and much different to that type of bottle. So it's pretty much getting there now. Just turn it over. I'm actually going to use this drill bit and just push it through to one side. There. Once it's through, just give it a few seconds to cool and it'll turn solid. Once it's cool, you can pull it off. Done. So you've got a nice little spout for the drip to drip out. If it's cool, just chip the top off. There. Got a little spout cap. So I've done that for a bunch of these tops here, so I'm just going to snip off the top to allow the water through. And if you can get one with a nice thin nozzle, I think I created that using this, the smoothest one you have. Use this one on the bottom reservoir and you'll see the tube we have before actually just fits nicely over the top, like that. That's basically how your bottom reservoir is going to work. So there we have it. I'm just going to screw these on. I think that was the one for here. For the bottom one also, you can have it coming straight out the bottom, perpendicular to the cap. For these ones, it's better to create an angle, that way you can turn it and adjust where the drip comes out. So we're just going to put these on for now. If you put the drip facing the back, that's normally the best place for it. But once you have it all tidied, that's pretty much the tower built. So you can see the drips coming down there. That's the reservoir bottles. There's the caps I showed you before, and then the black tubing coming down under there. But the tube comes up, connects with my air pump, which is just a normal fish tank air pump there. I've just got this one online. Goes all the way up the top and feeds into the top there. So the important points to note is we have one-way valves in here, so the water doesn't flow up to my pump, even though it's pretty hard for it to flow up to there. But if your pump was lower down, to stop it draining down in there. Second point is these should be the same height as the bottom of your reservoir. That way, as it gets emptier, it still has water to pump around. So the water pressure from this bottle will push it all the way around to there, introduces the air, which sends it up to the top. And I bought a variable fish tank pump, but you don't actually need much pressure. It's on the lowest setting. This here is a 4-watt pump with 2 outlets. It's easiest to have 1 outlet per tower. Ensures just a simple straight connection, 1-to-1, one for each tower, one for each tube, and that's it. So each tower is one closed loop. One thing I would say, if you're going to use soil in the pots in the towers, I'd put some kind of filter in the bottom of the reservoir, some kind of sponge or a piece of tights, or the green scouring pads should probably work, something that's going to let the water through but stop little bits of soil going through. Again, if you are going to do soil, I'd probably flush out the full system a few times before you let it go down the tubes, because that's one potential that with soil that it might block up your tube. So the things you'll need for the circulation system is 4mm tubing. Comes with most fish tank pumps. Most of the time they come with the clear. If you're doing it in soil, clear is probably fine. If you're doing it hydroponically, the black's probably better because it will block out the sunlight and you'll get less algae. So basically what you'll need: the tubing, your one-way valve, a T-junction, and your tubing that will go around your system. I'll draw that for you because it's easier than trying to explain. So if you've got your tower, which is basically a bunch of bottles, excuse my drawing, it's not the best. And then the bottom one is your reservoir, so that's there, and then you've got the tube coming out. Now it's good to have a drop, gives you a bit of pressure, and then coming back up. At this point you'll want your T-junction, which looks like that. So you have your T in there, and then you want a little bit of clear tubing on there, and that'll go to your one-way valve. And then you go to your pump, and then all you need is to continue your tubing up to the top, and then that's where you'll get your drops of water, and that's basically it. I set my timer on to come on for 15 minutes every hour. It's a bit hot here in the afternoon, so I actually flip it and have it on for 45 minutes every hour. If you're doing soil, you probably only want to do once a day, but depending on your temperature you might want to do more or less, so you just have to experiment. And once it's all done, it should look a little bit like that, hung up and connected with plants in it. A couple of points to note: I find the 1 litre reservoir is a bit small, so you might want to purposely make it a larger, 1.5 litre or 2 litres. When you cut your top tube into your top pot, make sure it's long enough to go into the media in the flower pot, that way it'll make it quieter and muffle some of the bubbling noises. Quick grow plants work best in here, lettuce, herbs. I did have longer growing plants like that big broccoli there in the tower, but it was getting too big, so I took it out and put it in a separate pot. I've got peppers, strawberries and tomatoes in the bottom bottles there. We'll see if the same thing happens to them. Hopefully the roots won't get too big. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Thanks, goodbye.